Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we have some science to spend. We're not going to be able to get quite everything on the tree, but it's going to be close. And here's the thing. I think we're just going to work our way through. So we're going to grab from here, and we'll grab this entire row. That'll be absolutely fine. We're, I think, not quite going to be able to get the entire 550 row, and we're not really going to start on the 1000 row, I think, if I've done my math correctly here. So we'll see how that ends up playing out, but I definitely want to get this entire row concluded. Let's see here. That's the Propodobodine Rovemate. Yeah, that should be fine. Cool. We have a lot of science. No doubt about that. And we have a lot more to get to. So we'll grab very heavy rocketry. I also want to head down this way, actually. Metamaterials, nanolathing. I want to be a little bit more choosy at this point. Let's see. Aerospace tech. Experimental science is something that we need. So we'll grab that. Ion propulsion is a nice to have. Remote guidance units are nice to have too, but we don't really need that. The 10K rechargeable battery bank would not be awful, but the 4K is probably good enough. We'll go ahead and grab all of that. Cool. And then advanced unmanned tech is all fine. The RA100 relay antenna is actually pretty good to have. So we'll make sure to grab that one. And then beyond that, is there anything else that is an absolute must-have for us right now before we just start filling this in? That is the main question. Yeah, that's the Rapier engine. No real problem there. The larger wheels, sure. Okay, it looks like we've got pretty much everything that we're going to need. So obviously, these two would wipe us out. We're not going to be getting those. So we can grab ion propulsion here, and let's grab advanced motors. So how much do we need at this point to max out? It's not that much, actually. So that's 1100, so 1650, plus another 2000. So we need 3650. We have about 10% of that. So yeah, that's not going to be too bad. Let's go ahead and hop on out of here, and let's hop into the VAB, because we need to send a power and a mining module still to our colony. So that will be our first mission here. So we now have access to the remote guidance units. That will be fantastic. That's the extra small variant. This is the larger size variant. Fantastic. Is this the 2.5 meter size? I believe this is 2.5 meter. Let's double check that by grabbing, say, this Rockamax tank. Not quite 2.5 meter. Okay, noted. So this is going to be a power module here. This does have a built-in reaction wheel, and it's a reasonably strong one, but we're probably going to toss in more large reaction wheels here. So something kind of like this, and then we'll probably put another one on the bottom. But for the moment, this is our power module here, so we definitely want to run, like, 10Ks are a little too big. We're thinking 4Ks. How much are these each? They're pretty expensive. Okay, noted. So I'm thinking something along the lines of 4 of these, followed by our landing fuel tank, which could just simply be an XT-232. And then we essentially duplicate all of this here, ditch this tank. So this is going to be, what, 32,000 power? That should be plenty of storage capacity. So something kind of like this. Then we would want to have some Gigantors on here. The Gigantors are going to be our primary power generation. We'll have a pair of Gigantors here for charging this bank, and a pair of Gigantors, that was the wrong thing, a pair of Gigantors here as well. Beautiful. So something like that. We'll snap those into position. And this one can go about here. The reason I moved this down a little bit, and this, well, this could go down a little bit too, to about here. The reason I did that is because we're thinking about center of mass here. And right now, the center of mass is about perfect, so that's good. What would it look like if we toss in the reaction wheel down here? I think that's slightly better for the center of mass. And then, of course, we'll need a docking port up here. So that will be coupling. And we're going to put our docking port here. Now, I would love to have another docking port on this side. We can theoretically do that. Indeed, we can. So we would need to flip that over like this, and then that would attach to our fairing. Yes. So our fairing would go in here then, but for the time being, we're going to put in our engines. I do wish we had a better engine than the twitches, because the twitches are very loud. But alas, we do not. Okay, so we're going to need to rotate this twitch engine correctly. Alternatively, I'm just thinking here, we could... No, I don't think that's necessary. Now we could use thuds. What is the actual thrust of a thud? 120 kilonewtons versus 16 kilonewtons. We could actually use thuds. A pair of thuds would be far more powerful than 3 twitches. And we could rotate it about like that, put it there, snap it into position. Okay, that should be approximately correct. Cool. That should do the trick. Over the moon, let's check our thrust to weight. It should be really, really good. 6.3. Yes. Beautiful. So from here, we are, of course, going to need our wheels. Now, we need to think about this. This is not where we want these studs to be. This is definitely not where we want these studs to be. The thuds need to be over on this side here. Going something like that, although apparently that did not mirror. Intriguing. Let's do radial symmetry here. Okay. Yep. So our problem here is that we need to have it be like this and then snap them into place. It's a little bit awkward, but it's no big deal. We'll get that turned around. There we go. And then we'll snap it into place. And I think it should be snapped in fact, well, we'll see. Okay. So it should be snapped in down a bit. Yes, about there. So if we look at our center of thrust here, that looks pretty good. Close enough that the reaction wheels can definitely do what we need. Okay, now we need our actual landing wheels. And where are we going to put those? Well, we could angle our Gigantors a little bit so that they're not flat here and put them like here instead. That's a possibility. So that way we would create some room. So a Gigantor there and a Gigantor here. We'll just snap those into position to make sure that they are reasonably symmetrical here. That'll need to be moved down. There we go. And then our Gigantors down this way will do the same thing. So they're going to be at a 45-degree angle here. And that's honestly probably for the best here. Gets them a little bit more out of the way and angles them away from any hilly ground bits. So again, that's probably for the best to have them be at this angle. So we'll bring that down like so. Cool. Checking in on our weight ratio. That's looking fantastic. Okay. We, of course, need our wheels now. So the next thing that we do is we go into our structural. Cubic octagonal struts, we're going to put in approximately here and here. We will snap those into position soon enough. And then here and here. But actually, we should construct one of these and then duplicate it, is the way that this really should work. Okay, so we're going to do basically the same thing that we did previously. We're going to grab a 1P4 telescoping hydraulic cylinder, place it there, and I'm going to snap that into position. Okay, slightly awkward, but sure. And we'll snap this in about here. Cool. I want to turn off snapping at this point and just ease that in so that these are actually connected. There we go. Something kind of like that should do. And we can pull it out like that. Cool. So this is basically the same wheel setup that we had previously. So at this point, the cubic octagonal strut goes there. That's not necessarily where I intended that to go, but that's fine. We can turn snapping back on, snap that into position. Perfect. And now we can put on our wheel. We do have access to the larger Rovemax models, but they're a little on the big side. There's no doubt about that. We're not going to go for that. We're just going to go for the good old-fashioned Rovemax Model S2. And we'll position that there. Let's snap that in. And we really want it to be, I think, up here, but let's double check that. So I'm going to save this as the colony power module. There we go. And let's just double check what we already created for, say, our... We've already got the colony power unit here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that because we've got the power module. Let's load up our science unit. All we're doing here is looking at our wheel assembly. Okay, noted. Noted. We're at the bottom here. Otherwise, this looks good. So we're going to open this up because we know that this is about the right height as it is. So we're going to open up our power module. And this should be at the bottom here. So we'll just position that to be there. Going to turn off snapping and just move it on in. Cool. Something like that should do the trick. So, are we only going to have the 2 sets of wheels here? Honestly, I think so. I think that's the case. So we're going to turn snapping on here, and we're going to position that there. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. And over here. Cool. So only 2 sets of wheels here should be fine. This will be more than enough fuel, and of course we're going to need something that is up here to control correctly. So, we can then simply put in a, like, propanodiene hex that's nice and cheap. Or even, like, an octo. Yeah, the octo is cheaper. So the octo would go in up here. We will simply put in a cubic octagonal strut right here. And then the octo goes in about like that. About like that. I think it should probably be rotated so that the octo is up. So this is forward, quote unquote, and that should be fine. We'll now clip this in, as we did previously, and position that approximately here. So it is still poking out a little bit so we can access it. I am, however, noticing it's not on the correct height. Okay. That's certainly exciting. We're going to grab this and move it on down at least 1 notch there. Yes, that should be correct. So let's take a look once more at our center of mass and our, not our aerodynamic overlay, but our center of thrust. We can see that our center of thrust is, I think, ever so slightly below our center of mass. So I'm going to grab our thud here. Now we have to grab these, like, both at the same time and move this like half of the distance. So I'm going to just very slightly move that up. That looks approximately correct to me. Okay, so let's save this once more, put it out on the pad, and let's test it out in space real quick here, just to make sure that we don't tumble out of control when we start the burn. Fantastic. Any moment now, KSP. You can do it. Okay. So we're just going to put this out in orbit. Just as a quick simulation. We will throttle up, or rather SAS on, throttle up, and all we care about here is... Ooh, that was very snappy. All we care about here is, do we get pushed off course? Looks good. I'm noticing that it looks like it's turning here, but we're sticking on retrograde. So if we just go on to stability assist here, you can see that we're holding firm. So that's exactly what we wanted to see. Beautiful. We'll revert that back to vehicle assembly, because now we need to lift this thing. So we're going to put on a fairing. And yes, we've only got 2 wheels here, or 2 sets of wheels, but it should be fine, I think. Our previous modules did have 3. There's no doubt about that. But let's go ahead and put on a fairing here. So this is going to be a 2.5 meter fairing. That goes right there, and simply comes out something like this. Yes, it's huge. This is probably bigger than it needs to be, realistically. So we would bring this out to be... maybe that's not bigger than it needs to be. I would love to have it be, like, smaller than this. I would love it if these wheels could fold in a little bit better. Technically, we could make that possible. But we've got so much delta V in this thing, I don't think that the fairing weight really matters all that much. So let's go ahead and build this fairing, and we're just going to build it this way. Cool. So as you can see, this is a pretty heavy fairing, and it's huge. It's absolutely huge. There's no shockers there. I do want to strut together this on this side, just so that we'll quad symmetry this. I'd love to strut this together here, so that we have a little bit more joint strength here. And these struts should auto brake when we undock this, but I actually want it to come this direction, so that the struts are based up here and connect down like that. So that way they stick with this module and we can reuse the struts later on. That'll be perfect. Now we can merge in, and we'll save and continue. We can merge in our heavy lifter, which is in here somewhere. Standard booster. There we go. We'll merge that in. And we can see this is pretty expensive. This is no shocker. We're going to ditch this mobility enhancer for sure. And we're going to ditch the Probodobodine Octo and just attach in the stage 2. Beautiful. Okay. What's our weight looking like here? 1.47. A little slow, but we should have more than enough fuel. This will not be a problem. Okay, I think we're ready to send up our power module. So these Gigantors are going to generate a lot of power. You know, we could even think about tossing on a 3rd Gigantor. Snapping on. And that would go just vertical here. Like that. This is slightly off. Okay, that's not on 45 degrees. That should be, like, here. Okay, we'll snap that into position. This one is off as well. We'll snap that into position in a bit. And then we will position that there. Cool. Let's make sure our Gigantors are correctly set up. It does not want to snap this to the same point. That's a little bit awkward. This one is fine. This one is not. Well, we'll just turn snapping off for the moment and position it there. Cool. Snapping goes on, and we're going to come down here and snap this one to be, I think on this position is maybe a little too close, so about here should be good. We'll snap this one in as well, and this one. So all of those seem to work reasonably well. There we go, that snapped in. Cool. Yeah, that should work. Let's double check if we detach this. Let's go ahead and double check this without this as well. So we double check that and we turn on center of mass and center of thrust. Looks good. We put those back on. And at this point, we should probably get rid of this guy. Cool. And then come up over here. There we go. Okay, I think we're good. Unless I do that. I think we're good. We should be able to launch this now. So we'll save that and launch it. It's a very wide and not particularly tall fairing. That's for sure. But it won't be there for long. So let's load this on in, and off we go. Eventually. Off we go eventually. So we'll throttle up, SAS on. We're not expecting any control issues as we go through because we've got just insane amounts of reaction control. We didn't really check our staging. We should do that. So this is good. These detach. Yes, that's correct. That detaches, and at this point, this engine should fire. Fairing detachment is honestly something we'll do manually, but that's okay. And then these can fire. Sure. That looks good. Throttle up, SAS on, and off we go. Cool. We, of course, don't have a KER on this, so we'll hop into orbital mode so we can keep an eye on our apoapsis from here. And we should definitely start getting some horizontal speed. So we'll just head on over this direction, and we'll consider locking to prograde here pretty soon. We do have a bit of a shimmy at the moment, but if we lock to prograde, that should clean up. Yeah, that looks good. Absolutely fantastic. So we're going to get these side boosters burned out eventually. They're about halfway burned. 45 seconds on that. Oh, hello, Moon. I didn't even realize that. That's kind of hilarious. Noted. Well, up we go. Whoa. I don't know what was with those trees, but sure. There's also apparently no stars. I think we're running into some graphical... Oh, now we can see stars. I think we were running into some graphical bugs there. I mean, some of the mods that we're using are still in beta for this version of KSP, so that's not super shocking. Our apoapsis is currently about 50 kilometers. We definitely want to get more horizontal speed, but we're going to wait to do that until we have detached here. So we're just walking back to prograde. There we go. And now we can head over to the horizon. And just get some horizontal speed. Cool. So we'll park here. Yes, this increases our drag on our vertical speed. No, we don't care. Cool. So we're going to park here until our apoapsis hits about 100 kilometers. Should be fine. We can ditch our fairing, honestly, as of now. We no longer need the fairing. So that is out of here. That'll help our thrust to weight quite a lot. Cool. Apoapsis is currently about 84 kilometers. Just slightly tweaking our heading here. There we go. And technically, I don't know if these rotate correctly, but we can find that out once we're through with this burn. We may have to invert their directionality, but that's okay. So we're currently at about a 90 kilometer apoapsis. We're now officially in space. Fantastic. But we're still accelerating here. 98 kilometers. 99, and that's 100. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and extend our solar panels. Not like we're expecting to run out of power anytime soon. But we can do that. And Gigantoids, of course, can be retracted if we need to. Okay. So there we go. This is all looking good. Once we get to our apoapsis, of course, we are going to circularize. How much delta V will that be? 475.3. Cool. This looks a little ridiculous right now, and we may end up changing the position of these because of... Well, actually, once we're landed, this won't be too bad. Right now, in space, these block each other, right? But when we're landed, we're expecting them to be horizontal more than, like, facing this direction being the flat direction rather than this direction being the flat direction, and that'll make a lot more sense. And then these would be for when the sun is rising and setting, and these would be for when it's above us. So that's the overall concept there. Unfortunately, this, not the reaction wheel, but the remote guidance unit can't lock to this maneuver node. I thought it could. Is that a change that they made somewhat recently? Interesting. We're going to position here and make ourselves ready for our orbital burn. And we're going to burn about half of the fuel left in this tank as we circularize. Cool. So this burn will be done very shortly. We will be entering orbit. At this point, we'll just lock to prograde. It'll be fine. And we need to get approximately into a circular orbit. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's good enough. Okay, so with that there, of course, the moon becomes our target. And we should launch over to that. Actually, it's already too late. We're going to have to do an orbit here. That's no big deal, but sometime around here-ish, I'm thinking. Yeah, that might be okay. We bring it in about there, prograde a bit harder, and bring that down to about 15 kilometers. So something around here should work. Cool. Yep, that should do the trick. And of course, this is going to burn some of this tank. But how much is in this tank? Well, that's a lot, is the answer. There's 4225 meters per second in this tank. But there's apparently 0 meters per second in this tank. I'm wondering if it's going to pull from both tanks. Disable crossfeed. 1500 meters per second and then 2375 up here. That makes more sense. Perfect. That's what we want. Okay, so we're going to prepare for that burn, but as we do that, I want to check, you know, we could, it looks like these are steering the correct direction. We could disable steering on these back ones. I'm not sure how necessary that really is so. So we're going to rotate on over to this burn position and prepare for that burn. It is, however, about time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to bring our power module to our colony. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, MLohan80, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Video Games Are Not Real, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Unisol, Kadra, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video. And as always, I will see you all next time.